I'm in South and I got issues.
Oh yeah, those are good because the original hits. Now there's none of that.
Today's issue is Heroic Tales, Issue 1, The Patriarch. I'm gonna rate this on the Salad scale. S for story, A for art, L for lettering, A for action, and D for drama. How does this comic book rank? As always, I have my notes. This takes place in Science City, Arizona. There's a robbery happening, and the henchmen are really hot, sexy girls. I drew one of them, by the way. Look at it. Look at it here. It's beautiful. The hot ladies are the most appealing part of this issue. The first thing I noticed is how clunky the dialogue is. The first line is, okay, comma, C, comma, no funny business. And it seems like you're trying to go for an old-timey mobster kind of dealio, but it doesn't read like that at all. The bank is being robbed by this man with all the hot ladies when the patriarch comes. In a very underwhelming reveal, he just kind of shows up, oh hey, I'm here now. Okay, cool. Nothing interesting, nothing like, oh, I'm gonna punch a guy. This is a comic book. Do something cool. But no, he just floats, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, all the bullets, they don't work anymore. I fused them together with my X-ray vision. And then he just flies away as the people are arrested. And this is the entire issue, by the way. It's just him going to places, rescuing people, and then flying out. And normally that would be alright, but the way that the dialogue is written, it's unclear what the extent of his powers are. Obviously he can fly, and then it shows that he has X-ray vision, and then it shows that he can hear long distances. And it does that throughout the book, but it doesn't say, okay, and this is something I can't do. It's always showing, oh, he can do this, and then this, and then this. So I'm expecting, well, is he going to be shown another power? Or is it going to be shown something he can't quite face against very well? Also, why does he have these powers? It's not explained why he has any of these powers whatsoever. He just has them. Oh, Superman's powers. Cool. Why? There's no interesting, unique reason why he has the powers that he does. It just says, oh, he has these powers. The world is built in such a way that people know who the patriarch is. But something that really bothered me was the thought bubble explaining his powers. It's him thinking about how meticulous he has to be. But he's already been established to be a figure in the community to a degree where a lot of people know his name, meaning he's done this many, many times before. And he's a patriarch. He's supposed to be like the manly figure. He's the guy who gets it all done. He's supposed to be the confidence man. But his thought bubbles show that he's actually incredibly insecure. And there's no reason why he's insecure. It doesn't explain why. You can have all these decisions, you just have to justify it in the writing, and the writing doesn't justify any of these decisions. There's also this chick who decides to fall off the side of a building in order to get the attention of the patriarch. And then she kisses him, and I can't tell what the relationship is. At best, it's a fan who's really into the patriarch, who the patriarch hasn't set any clear boundaries, by the way, and he doesn't set any clear boundaries after catching her from falling off of the side of a building so she can get his attention. That's not a patriarchal thing to do, leave muddy boundaries. That's what a woman does, by the way. This isn't the matriarch. This is the patriarch. I expect some manliness, and he's written like a wuss. Saves that woman and then just flies away, not being like, oh yeah, we're not in any sort of relationship. He's just like, you shouldn't do that. Obviously, have you considered why she's doing it though? Have you gotten any deeper? As soon as he deals with that, then he deals with an asteroid. The dialogue is, oh, I gotta deal with this one other thing, and then it doesn't really show how he knows there's an asteroid coming. He just, I guess, flies straight through the middle. It's not exactly clear with the art what he does, but he goes and then it destroys the asteroid. And then he comes back to Earth and he's like, oh, I have to deal with another problem. There's a giant spider and there's a giant little lobster scorpion thing that's terrorizing the city. It's my arch nemesis. It's like speedrunning Superman tropes. Each line of dialogue is like, oh, you're my arch nemesis. I must defeat you. Here's some dialogue that made me crack up. Are you crazy, a missile? You could kill people. You are not a murderer. That's what the patriarch says. It's so hilarious. This is clearly written by somebody who's a fan of comic books. It's like having a chef in the kitchen who's a fan of food, but doesn't know how to make the food taste good. He's mixing ingredients that sound like they would be good together, but in actuality don't go good together. Just throwing in random stuff because chefs in the past have used it. Oh yeah, let's just throw in the milk, let's throw in some broccoli, let's throw in some barbecue chicken, let's throw in some whiskey, let's throw in some onion, let's throw in some kidney, some liver. Look, I've seen chefs do this. Let's just throw it all in together. Let's just mix it up and see what happens. That's this comic book in a nutshell. But Superman stuff instead of food. There's a scene where he's being overrun by robot ants. And there's a moment of, it seems like he's actually struggling. It's not shown why. He's not necessarily the weakest person. I know he's fatigued, but he's like, oh my goodness, I'm so weak, right? And then he hears a woman scream in the distance, and he goes, but I must fight for her. And you know, normally, if it was written in a way that it built up to this, I'd be emotionally moved. But the pacing's way too fast. It just happens so suddenly. He's suddenly overrun by ants, and then he's suddenly not overrun by ants, and he saves the lady. And this all happens within, like, a page, so there's not enough time to build tension. It seems like it's supposed to be the trope like you see in the Spider-Man movie. He's trying to stop the train, he's not strong enough, but pushes through. It's kind of like that. It seems like it's attempting that. But the difference between the Spider-Man stuff and this is that the Spider-Man stuff really builds it up, and you live in the scene, versus this just flies through tropes, flies through writing things that just exist. Oh yeah, this is a trope that I need to hit the beats of. Okay, cool. Flies through it, doesn't understand why they're there, doesn't understand how to make those tropes effective. It just says, oh, plot them here. Plot him here. All right, cool. And this is the ultimate patriarch. He flies home, but before he flies home, he grabs the deer, snaps his neck, which is probably the coolest part of this comic. And then he flies home, and he meets his wife, and they have like a lovely moment. And this has to be the most evenly paced scene in this entire book, is the moment with him and his wife. His experience is the loving part, which is why it's the most believable part of this issue. So he might be a bad comic book writer, but he seems like a good husband. That was the story. It all happens on Father's Day, so I guess this is a thing that happens daily. This is a daily occurrence. The art is definitely the best part. The anatomy is correct. I did notice that a lot of the poses were pretty stiff. Very good pin-ups. Not so much the motion in between the panels and also motion on the page as general. There's not a lot of motion in between the panels, and there's not a lot of motion for your eyes to follow all along the page. The background and the characters have a same amount of detail. This world feels very lived in. I understand the appeal of the art. It was definitely sold based on the cover and the interiors. They're well done. I like the range of colors, but it's mostly focused within the blues and the oranges, and then reds and purples as in-between colors. I like the limited color palette used throughout the book. It's the strongest part of this book has to be the artwork. The only thing that I could really criticize the artwork for is the dynamicness. It needs to be more dynamic, but the anatomy is correct. Colors are good. Overall, the facial expressions are good. Now it's time for lettering. I think the onomatopoeia should have been a lot bigger in this book, and there should have been a lot more of them. If you're copying Superman, do it right. Most of this book uses thought bubbles like used in the Golden Age era comic books for narration. Except for one scene. Except for one page where it uses modern narration boxes to narrate his thoughts. And then it returns back to the thought bubbles? What is this break in convention? Overall, the dialogue is very clunky, and it reads like everybody has the same voice. They all read like a bunch of wimpy dorks. Now it's time for the action. The action is in the dialogue, which is to say, it's not shown on page very often. Whenever there is action, it'll show a couple of panels at most, and it's never the before and after of an action. Nothing cool like a punch. It's just him lifting a car as an example and then setting it down. Not like him catching it in midair, like a cool little pose like you could do in comics because, you know, someone's drawing it. It doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to look real. It has to look cool. And it doesn't look cool. Things that could be cool look boring in this book. For example, you could have shown this car barreling off the side of a cliff and had some sort of tension adding a few shots of the car falling and then hanging off, and then you show the reactions of the people. You need that in order to establish some sort of tension, so I have an emotional attachment to the moment. Instead of just seeing, oh, a car is hanging off of a cliff, I don't care. How did they get there? Who cares? The patriarch's on his way to save them. All of the action feels like that, including when he's being overrun by all the ants. He doesn't look like he's struggling at all. He's just being covered with a bunch of ants. He's like, oh no, He's thinking, oh no, I'm making too many mistakes. I'm struggling right now. Oh no, whatever shall I do? But the weight of that isn't conveyed in the artwork. Show, don't tell, it's a comic book. The coolest thing that he does is he grabs a deer and snaps its neck. Seeing that motion of the deer neck snap, that's a cool panel. I wish more of this book was like that panel, but it's not. Why didn't you do this for the rest of the book? This deer neck snapping thing is so cool. I just want to see more of that, and I didn't get more of that. I'm actually quite sad. I see the potential that's here. Also, why is he killing deers? He's a superhero. I think it's to show how manly he is. Oh, he can just grab a deer and snap its neck and then give it to his wife to do all the gutting or whatever. Hunters believe in game and sport. This is not hunting at all. He's even like, sorry, but I have 8 mouths to feed. And then it's not shown the 8 mouths to feed, it just shows his wife and then I think it's his oldest son, and that's it. I would have liked to see the 8 mouths he has to feed. This is about a man who loves his wife very dearly, and that in itself is not bad, but who is this comic book for? Especially with the name Patriarch, I expect a manly man who's going to do a bunch of punching, who is very confident about himself, but instead the internal dialogue is insecurity. He is having a hard time fighting ants, and his arch nemesis is a fat nerd. And he is like a buff physique man. So why is he his arch nemesis? This is a self-insert power fantasy of the writer. The drama, what drama? There's not really much drama, except for he's insecure all the time and it's annoying and I hate him. The art is pretty good. It's serviceable. It's the only good thing about this piece of trash written comic. So bad. It's so self-inserty of the writer, and it's so noticeable, and it's not hidden at all. It's just right there in front of your face. It makes me think, oh, the writer is insecure and has no life experience because this is not written in a realistic way, except for the wife-loving part, which the writer definitely has experience with because it's the most fleshed out part of the book. They say to write what you know, and there's a reason for that. The writer does not know what heroism is. He would be incapable of heroism. And we are all better off knowing that he is not the guy that we rely on to save us. I don't like to separate the art from the artist. I like to combine them because of the meta-narrative. Art is usually about the artist because artists are usually egotistical. This is one such case. Now it's time to judge this on the Sound score. As for story, I would have to give this a 1. Art, it's pretty dang good. I'd have to give it a 4. Lettering needs improvement, but the letters are there, and at least the text bubbles kind of flow together, so I'd give it a 2, but needs way more onomatopoeia, needs to be bigger. The action, very pin-up-y drawn. It looks like it could be done on like a t-shirt or a poster. A lot of the action is in between the panels. I wish I could have seen more of that, but what was drawn pretty well. So I'd have to give the action like a 3.5. And then the drama, there's no sense of emotionality with this. I have no emotions associated with this comic book. It's just so lacking of drama or anything remotely interesting. I'd have to give the drama a 1 as well. Reading it literally put me to sleep. And this gets an 11.5 out of 25 on the Sound scale. That has been Mince Got Issues.
Oh yeah, those are good because the ones you